All right, let's just dive right in. Welcome to this explainer where we are going to unpack the incredible source material behind genuine, lasting personal effectiveness. If you've ever felt completely burnt out trying to use superficial life hacks that promise you the entire world, but let's be honest, deliver very little, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking a really deep dive into what it actually means to move from the inside out.
Okay, picture this for a second. Have you ever tried navigating Chicago with a map of Detroit? I mean, just visualize that sheer frustration. You could try harder, right? You could drive faster. You could even sit there and think incredibly positively about the whole situation. But absolutely none of that behavior or that positive attitude is actually going to get you to your destination simply because you are fundamentally using the wrong map.
And honestly, that brilliant metaphor perfectly explains a universal pain point for so many of us. Why is it that our diets, our clever communication hacks, and our super sophisticated time management systems just keep failing us? We feel overworked, we feel completely stuck, despite applying endless quick fixes. Well, the source material reveals that this happens because we're focusing on the wrong map entirely. We're out here trying to change our behavior without ever actually changing the underlying map.
To really grasp this, we've got to look at a pretty stark contrast. For the last several decades, society has been completely obsessed with the personality ethic. You know what I mean? These are your quick fixes, your social band-aids, basically the superficial leaves of the tree. But true, lasting growth, that requires the character ethic. These are the roots. We're talking about things like deep integrity, humility, and basic principles. Because you really can't just hack away at the leaves of attitude and behavior. If you want real change, you have to strike at the root.
The power of paradigms. So what exactly is a paradigm anyway? Well, it's essentially the lens or the mental map through which we interpret everything in the world around us. But here's the really crucial takeaway. The map itself is not the territory. We almost never question our own mental maps. We just blindly assume that the way we see things is the way they truly are.
This brings us to an absolutely incredible quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Just let this sink in for a moment emotionally. "What you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say." It's so true, right? Our underlying character, our deepest paradigms, they communicate way louder than any superficial interpersonal technique we might try to fake. If there isn't deep, genuine integrity there, the inevitable challenges of life will always cause your true motives to surface.
So how do we actually change these maps? Well, it happens through a paradigm shift. Imagine you're on a really quiet subway train and a man gets on with his wild, totally disruptive kids, and he just sits there and does nothing. You'd be pretty irritated, right? But then he suddenly realizes what's happening and reveals that they actually just left the hospital where the children's mother died an hour ago. Instantly, literally in a split second, your irritation vanishes into deep compassion. That is a paradigm shift. Or think about a mighty battleship demanding that an approaching light change its course immediately, only to find out it's a lighthouse. The battleship has to yield. Principles are exactly like those lighthouses. They're natural laws that simply cannot be broken.
Now, understanding these deeply rooted principles brings us to the real definition of effectiveness, and is perfectly captured by Aesop's old metaphor of the goose and the golden egg. Production, the golden eggs that we all want, has to be balanced with production capability, which is the actual health of the goose. True success absolutely requires balancing short-term results with long-term capability. You can't just ruin your health, burn out your team, or destroy your relationships just to grab a few extra golden eggs today.
Habit 1, be proactive.
Between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Now, the source material uses the harrowing but incredibly transformative story of psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. He actually survived the unimaginable horrors of the Nazi death camps. Stripped of literally everything, Frankl realized the very last of the human freedoms. His captors could control his entire environment. They could do whatever they wanted to his body, but he alone could decide within himself how it would actually affect him. It's a powerful reminder that no matter the circumstance, we always have the ultimate agency to choose our response.
So, we end up applying that freedom daily in one of two ways. Reactive people, they waste all their precious energy out in the circle of concern, stressing over the weather, the economy, or all of other people's flaws. It's constantly about what they have to deal with. But proactive people, they focus completely inward on their circle of influence. This is all about our own choices, our own habits, our reactions, who we want to be. And by working on what they can actually control, proactive people generate this amazing positive energy that literally expands their power and their influence over time.
Actually, a really great way to test yourself on this is to just listen to the everyday language you use. Think about these reactive phrases.
there's nothing I can do, or, he makes me so mad, or I just have to do that. What is actually happening when we say these things? Well, you are literally programming yourself to be a victim. You're taking your own responsibility, handing it off, and surrendering your emotional life over to outside forces.
Now let's completely flip that around and look at proactive language, which empowers you to totally reclaim your agency. Let's look at alternatives. I control my own feelings. I will choose an appropriate response. You see the difference? This language comes from a paradigm of deep personal responsibility. You aren't just being acted upon by the world, you are acting. And once we finally have that proactive agency, what do we actually do with it? Well, that leads us directly to our next step.
Habit 2. The end game.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is the principle that all things are created twice. I mean, think about it. You would never hammer a single physical nail into a house until you've fully drawn up the mental blueprint, right? Step 1 is that mental creation, the blueprint itself. Step 2 is the physical creation, the actual sweat-on-your-brow construction. If you just skip the mental creation phase in your own life, you are basically letting other people or just random past circumstances write your entire script for you by default.
Which brings us to the vital difference between leadership and management. Imagine a crew just hacking their way through a dense jungle with machetes. Management is making sure everyone's machete is super sharp and that they are clearing the brush as efficiently as possible. But leadership? Leadership is the person climbing the tallest tree, surveying the entire landscape and yelling down, "Hey guys, wrong jungle." Because honestly, no amount of efficient machete swinging even matters if your ladder of success is leaning against the entirely wrong wall.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought experiment straight from the source material. I want you to imagine visualizing your own funeral. Let's say 3 years from today. Your family, your friends, your colleagues are all there. What do you actually want them to say about you? What specific kind of character do you want them to remember? Because that image, that final destination, is your true definition of success. So the big question to ask yourself right now is, what are you doing today to make that vision true? Because true effectiveness always starts by beginning with the end in mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.